Gotham and Gotham Girl were some really interesting characters to come out of the Rebirth Gotham era storylines, but a lot of people were asking about their origins and what exactly are they to be in Gotham yet having Superman level powers, and we finally get that here. Now, my name is AJ here at The Hero Informer, and let's get into it. Now, fascinatingly enough, their origin is directly tied to Bruce Wayne's in a sense, and it kind of plays out like Batman's word for word. You know, family leaving a movie, going down a dark alleyway, which by itself is stupid, even more so in Gotham of all places, but going down a dark alleyway and getting stopped by a man trying to mug them. And this plays out exactly how you would expect, and how Bruce's own origin did. You know, the mugger beating the parents, holding them at gunpoint, as a young boy is helpless to do anything about it. Though before any bloodshed or bullets ring out, the entire story changes because Batman himself then arrives, instantly taking out the thug with one strike, which I think at this point is almost a poetic moment because it kind of shows how full circle Bruce's life has become. The same tragedy that destroyed him at one point, put him down the path he is on, is one that he can now directly prevent for another family and be the hero and difference maker he once needed himself. Though the same argument of escalation and of Batman and his rogue gallery still kind of stands, because as Batman gets better, more powerful, more tech, gadgets, etc., his villains also get stronger, make bigger, more destructive plans, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. But Batman here in a moment goes on to say, specifically talking to the little boy, the same boy that he once was in this dark alleyway, he says you're going to be scared for a while, and that's fine. Be scared. Everyone gets scared, but remember, all that means is everyone gets the opportunity to fight that same fear. Everyone gets the chance to be brave. But all of this, of course, is in the past. You know, in the present, we see the boy's parents, the same ones who could have really died in the alleyway if it wasn't for Batman. They go on to explain and retell the situation. Them, of course, thinking that they are talking to an FBI agent or someone from the government, which we're going to see in a second. That's kind of not true at all, and kind of funny who it actually is. But this government agent isn't actually here to hear about their almost tragic moment in the alleyway, but he's here to understand and question them about their children, Hank and Claire. Because while the boy's parents, of course, didn't die, the situation, more importantly, Batman's interruption of it, changed the trajectory of his life forever. Because after what happened, Hank, the little boy, became somewhat infatuated with the Batman, or at least what Batman represented in the helping of people that he always does. And while the daughter, of course, wasn't there, much like a lot of kids, you know, if the big brother is into something, the little sister, of course, is going to want to be involved in whatever their sibling is doing, which over the years, we see that fact firsthand, them growing, training, getting stronger, helping out, preparing and learning, because they have one specific goal in mind. They want to almost become what Batman himself has been. Now, yes, of course, they have taken their little obsession a little too far, but sometimes a little good can come from being obsessed, which just 1 year ago, they went overseas to help and do some charity work in some very difficult places and torn parts of the world. And even as their parents are explaining it, we see a shot of this quote-unquote FBI agent that is asking them all of these questions. And if you have any knowledge of who this is and Batman's identities and lore, you'd of course recognize this as Matches Malone, who was a really old secret identity for Batman, being created in the 70s and all, for him to go undercover and do exactly stuff like this. When he doesn't want to be Bruce Wayne or Batman, he has other alter egos that he can sprinkle in. But eventually the children, all grown up now, Hank and Claire, returned to Gotham just a month ago, just when, very obviously and not coincidentally, the new vigilantes of Gotham also appeared, Gotham and Gotham Girl, which of course I think is a really interesting premise. Like, these two new vigilantes taking direct inspiration from Batman, and while it's not a whole new idea because Batgirl herself kind of was in the same situation, the thing that makes them unique is they had no training or no direct contact with Batman. You know, they grew up training, learning, preparing all on their own, and then eventually got powers in their own way, which we're going to see how later on, and now have come back to Gotham to try and make the city a better place. Whereas Batgirl, she very quickly got into the Bat family with Batman and Robin and got trained by them, etc. In the same moment as Bruce undercover is trying to get information from their parents, Gotham and Gotham Girl are trying to stop an entire bridge from collapsing from a suicide bomber, forcing Bruce to cut this little meeting short and go over to try and help these inexperienced heroes in this giant catastrophe that has happened. Alfred, of course, briefing him on a situation before him using his decoy car and literally splitting it in half and revealing the Bat cycle and all of his Bat gear, which, I know Bruce Wayne is a billionaire and all, he can afford this type of gadgets, but come on, you can't tell me that isn't crazy. Like, an entire car just made to become his deployment for a smaller vehicle. Regardless, in the moment, it seems like the two almost Superman level beings, Gotham and Gotham Girl, can't really get a grasp on this this catastrophe that is happening. The weight of the entire bridge is almost too much for Gotham the hero to bear, until of course Batman is soon to arrive and then getting the situation under control with all of his gadgets and other gear. Though while this is happening, we kind of switch perspectives a little bit as someone else is watching this all go down, and they even go on to say and explain that they don't see Gotham the way Batman does and many other heroes. They start describing and explaining that Gotham is something rotten to its core. It's not just crime, but decay, corruption, violence, a city that is consistently and constantly collapsing in on itself, which of course then relates to its citizens and its people, because of course if you're surrounded by all of this horribleness that Gotham is, eventually you will internalize it yourself. And there of course are exceptions like the heroes, Batman, many of the different Robins, whoever came out of Gotham, etc. But for the most part, the very people of Gotham are flawed and corrupted as well. And who was saying all of this and going over it said that the fear of it all is a crutch and it's just an illusion, that if the fear is removed completely, then Gotham can be fixed. No panic, no riots, villains just giving up and the heroes win, and the city can finally become stable. And of course we're seeing who is saying all of this, Hugo Strange, the Batman villain himself, a man who doesn't really want to help Gotham live with the fear like Batman does and has done for himself, but instead he believes himself to be better than the city and is qualified to rewrite how everyone in it thinks and it feels, which of course he has a very powerful weapon that may even allow him to accomplish this goal surprisingly easily, which of course in the aftermath eventually they are able to get the bridge stabilized and assumingly no casualties happen on this day. Batman of course saying good job them two for holding off before leaving and telling them it's good to see what they did with their fear and them weaponizing it and using it for good, which in the exact moment Batman leaves and goes on to deal with other stuff, another explosion rings out across Gotham, and of course these two fly off to go find it, though all this is deliberate because as soon as they crash into the building where the fire was, they are met by Hugo Strange himself, now wielding and controlling someone named Psycho Pirate, who is wildly powerful and whose powers and effects can even derail these Superman level beings. As Hugo Strange goes on to say, this here is Psycho Pirate, master of all emotions, his, theirs, and even yours, of course referring to Gotham the hero himself. Then we move over a little bit later after Batman finally realizing that, there's another explosion in the city and him getting over slower than Gotham and Gotham Girl, but getting there eventually himself. And what he finds is just utter horror, bodies, blood, just destruction all around. It eventually using the entire picture. All of the soldiers there, and even Gotham Girl herself in the corner, affected as well from the Psycho Pirate and Hugo Strange, just proclaiming that she is scared over and over. As Batman goes on to say, talking directly to Alfred, I'm looking at 27 dead soldiers and it appears they are killed by someone with Superman level powers. And then on the wall there's 3 simple words written in the blood of the dead people here, I am Gotham. Clearly trying to show that, whatever Psycho Pirate did to Gotham broke something inside of him mentally, but maybe that might not be the case, because as we cut over, we see Gotham here now trying to stop a suicide jumper, which immediately you can tell this has some sort of similarities from the time Superman did it himself back over in All-Star Superman issue number 10 specifically. Superman was able to talk the jumper down and eventually saved her. Like even the panels and layout is the exact same from that moment, though here in Gotham things are never as it seems, because even as Gotham here is trying to talk the man down, literally giving the same speech that Bruce gave to him inside of that alleyway decades prior, it looks like he's getting through to the man, saving him from doing something very tragic. But at the last second, the man simply says the monster men are coming before pressing a detonator on his phone and blowing up whatever planted explosives were there, which of course means that this entire thing was planted and not just a random jumper as it seemed, but is going to have very big repercussions going forward, as just in Gotham Girl is also suffering in her own way, having extreme levels of fear, paranoia, all instilled into her by Psycho Pirate and by extension Hugo Strange. Her at the Batcave, trying to heal Alfred and Duke the Signo, trying to nurse her back to health and not exactly knowing what is causing her to be this level of paranoid and scared, which for her power level is very dangerous, as Batman can obviously tell as he goes to confront Gotham here, who is trying to do everything in his power to right the wrongs of the city, trying to go back to the same bridge that was destroyed, and he couldn't fully stop himself. He eventually is of course encountered by Batman, who is here to question him about, why is there 27 dead bodies and your name written in blood above their corpses, as Bruce goes on to say and explain, I looked into you, I watched you, tested you, you are not hurt like I'm hurt, you're not weak like I'm weak. I go down with a plane, whereas you can lift it out of the air. I thought if I trained you and guided you, you could save the city like I never could. So yes, I thought I knew what you could do before I came across 27 dead men in a burning building, which of course this number 27 of them is very important, because just then Gotham rockets off. And you're going to see why this is such an important detail in a second, as just then Batman gets a little information from Duke Thomas, the Signal, who was doing some information roundup and just seeing what exactly is happening in Gotham at the moment. Eventually eventually coming to the realization that the soldiers there, they belong to a very specific and special unit. Unit X, or Task Force X, or another name used for the Suicide Squad, meaning Amanda Waller herself is involved, in which he cut over to her and a US general there as well who was aiding her and trying to get Gotham under control. Originally, before their little trio, her, him, and then Hugo Strange had a plan to use Psycho-Pirate to rehabilitate and stop all crime before Hugo Strange went off the rails and took Psycho-Pirate and had his own scheme to do, which of course now Batman is here to get some answers. But even Amanda Waller here herself know when she's a little bit in over her head, as she goes on to explain to Batman, ever since you arrived on scene, Gotham has been on fire from his different villains, from the different catastrophes and whatever over the years. And of course, Gotham being in America, they don't just stand idly by while their cities burn. So she was tasked with taking out the flames, bringing two special associates, Psycho-Pirate and Hugo Strange, to help regulate and take some of the worst villains of Gotham down and try to clean up the city. But the very bad news is Strange betrayed the mission, used Psycho-Pirate to drive Gotham and Gotham Girl crazy. But that's the bad news. The good news is Batman is here now and can help her with this little unfortunate situation. But she actually goes on to reveal that there were supposed to be 28 soldiers there in that building. And with Batman only finding 27 bodies and corpses, meaning one of the soldiers was able to get away, which might not exactly seem like a big and giant deal, but it's what happens next, which is the crazy part. Cutting over 10 minutes later, we see Batman going on to say, "I understand the mask. It gets hot under. You sweat and it itches, so you took it off. You thought all of the soldiers were dead, so you took off your mask and revealed your identity." But one of the soldiers, the 28th one, was just pretending to play dead, in which he was able to take a picture and get Gotham's identity, in which then after he ran it through the Task Force X database, being able to ID him and by extension his parents who were still inside of the city, which then that one soldier took his revenge and killed Gotham's and Gotham Girl's parents. As we see Gotham just having that man by his neck, getting ready to squeeze the life out of him, with Batman continuing saying, finding that and seeing his parents like this, dead, murdered by this man, it brings out an anger like none you have ever known, and Batman himself can understand that all too well. But Gotham here, he's not like Batman. Batman took his tragedy, being only a mortal man, and used it to become stronger and do better. Gotham, on the other hand, he let the situation break him, as he goes on to say, "Do you know what he said when I found him standing over his mother and father, just waiting? The 28th soldier, the man who killed his parents, simply said and told Gotham that you're a monster." Before saying that, no, there's no fixing this. These people, the city, the situation, Batman, and by extension him and any other heroes can only make it worse before cracking and breaking the 28th soldier's neck, killing him on the spot. Of course, Batman is angry just seeing more murder and violence right in front of him, but Gotham with his powers is able to just completely overpower and dispose of Batman, and going on to say, "You see, maybe that's better. Maybe that's the way it should be. I sacrificed. I gave up everything to save my city, to save Gotham." But even when you do that, even when you sacrifice everything to save it, it still just bleeds. It destroys you. It destroys everything. Because in Gotham, the monster men are always coming. No, he cannot fix a city, nor can someone like Batman, but he can make it worse. He can just wipe it out if he wanted to. So no, he cannot save Gotham, but he can kill it before it hurts anyone else. Which is just a crazy conclusion to come to, thinking of Gotham and by extension his people as like a poison. And how, no, you cannot change the poison itself, but you can stop it from hurting and poisoning other people by just wiping everything out and restarting, which for someone like his power level, Superman level, as Batman even said, very well may be a card on the table. But that is something we're going to see next time as this video and issue comes to a close. As always, this was AJ here at The Hero Informer, and thank you for watching.